Hello, it's Rachel at From Moments to Milestones, and we're going to do a techniques class today. This techniques class features a 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders. We're going to do all things embossing folders. If you get a kit, it's going to look like this. This particular kit does not come with instructions, just this video. Because it's hands-on, it's hard to write instructions for that. So we will create these 3 cards with the samples you make, but you're also going to end up with some card panels that look like this that you'll be free to do with as you wish. So I'm going to open up the kit and kind of show you what's in there, and then we'll talk about some supplies you should gather before we start. And then we will get started. So this just kind of has pictures of those cards so you can see what we're going to make. You will get the 3D embossing folder. Mine's already open, obviously, but you'll get that. And then you're going to have 3 card kits to make those 3 cards. And then you're going to have some card panels that we're going to need to emboss, things we're going to do techniques on. You're going to have a piece of wax paper. You should have 5 white panels, a double-sided colored paper, black cardstock, and craft. So that's what's in your kit. And then in here, like this one looks a little different from yours. Yours will come with a full-size blue and a full-size teal panel that are not embossed, and you'll see why I have this left over when we go to do that card. I am going to use, somewhere I cut them, blue and orange, just so that I can show you how to do the technique. So I'm going to tuck those in there. And then there is, in this card, there is one that I've already embossed for you, a black one. So if you have this particular card kit, and just reach in there, and we're going to grab out that black one that's already embossed. We're going to need that as well. And I'm going to put everything else over to the side, and I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to put it over here. And so let's talk about some of the supplies we're going to need. So you're going to need an iron. I have a little mini craft iron here, and I have it warming up. So just a regular household iron on a dry setting will work. You're going to need some different inks. I'm using mostly dye inks here. Let's see, I have some. I just grabbed some different colors that I worked with. We'd actually use this particular red in this card, but really anything goes. So I have a sweet plum and rhubarb stalk from Memento, but any red or any other color combo that you like will do. And I also have a few Simon Hurley inks that I'm going to use. I have Clear Skies, Prom Queen, and Triple Berry. I also have a white pigment ink pad. This is the Lawn Fawn Yeti. You're going to need some blending brushes to go with each color that you choose. I also have a little sponge dauber. I'm going to use that with my white ink pad. We're also going to need a brayer. So this is an older style. There's several different, I'm trying to think of the other one we used in class that you may have, this Speedball Brandy's. Pop out, and you can put different styles of brayers in there. This is just kind of like it's not the foam one, like a rubber one. Whoops, so these are both rubber. This one's just stained from the class, and that's okay. It still works the same. That is not coming off. So, so a brayer and any paint. And this technique that I'm going to show you, we did use this Sizzix creamy acrylic paint. It dries very fast. It's thin. It's really nice, but you can skip this if you don't have paint or you don't want to mess with it. We can certainly do the same technique with an ink pad. So I'll leave that up to you when the time comes. But we are going to start. Now I did some embossing beforehand just so this video doesn't take forever, but I'm still going to walk you through what to do. So what we're going to do is play with our embossing folder first and get everything embossed and ready to go. Maybe do techniques at a time, and then we'll put the cards together. So I'm going to just kind of go down this pile here. I have a stack, and we're going to try to follow that. So I'm going to bring these 2 over. These we did not use in a card, But this technique uses wax paper, and this is just the same wax paper you find in your kitchen that you might use. And so we're going to take the piece of wax paper, and you're going to need 2 white card panels for this technique. So let's start there. And you're going to take your wax paper, place it into your embossing folder, and I'm going to run that through my machine. All right, so I have that run through my machine. I'm going to pull that out, and now we have embossed the wax paper. And this is also the technique you're going to need that hot iron for. So I do have mine warmed up, and then I'm going to protect this surface here. This is just a self-healing mat, and if I put that iron on there, it's certainly going to disform it a little bit. So I'm going to get some scratch paper or something to put underneath here, and I'll be right back. All right, so I have some scratch paper under here. I'm actually going to take one of them and fold it in half, because I'm going to use that to put on top, and I may just double these over so they're nice and thick. All right, so if you have an ironing board or a table you're not worried about ruining from the heat, that'd be fine. So I'm going to take this piece of embossed wax paper and sandwich it between these 2 card panels, like so. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to put a piece of paper over them to protect my iron. And then I'm just going to give nice even pressure, maybe 15 to 20 seconds. All right, I feel like that is good. What we're trying to do is melt the wax off of that paper, and so now I can feel it. It does not feel waxy at all. It feels more like a parchment paper, and you kind of see the design is mostly gone. And so now you should end up with 2 pieces of it's going to transfer to both sides, so you end up with 2. And it's kind of hard to see, but if I can kind of tell, I don't know if the light's hitting it right, but you can kind of see where the wax is on that paper. So I am going to take, and I still got my mat a little bit, I'm going to take one of these. You're going to eventually do both, but I'm just going to go with this red because that's what I've got right here. And I'm going to take my blending brush and load it up. And then I am going to go over that, and so you can see that pattern coming through. It's kind of like a emboss or a resist technique. Like if you used embossing ink or something, you get a similar, that resist effect. This is very pretty with like a floral embossing folder. Gives it a real distressed look. So there's that. And so then you end up with this panel. You could cut it down, make a tag, whatever. You've got that ready to make a card. And then the cool thing about this technique is that you get 2 pieces of that. And the pattern should be slightly different. Now this one's a little different because it has lots of big open areas with these balloons. But they do, I always say, ink them both and see which one you like better. Maybe like them both. The key to this is making sure you let that iron sit long enough to transfer the wax. All right. So that is technique number 1, the wax paper. And these are just samples you can put in your stash and make a card with later. All right, our next technique is going to feature this acrylic paint and the brayer. And like I said, if you don't have paint, an ink pad will work just fine. If you don't have a brayer, I have an extra embossed paper here. I'll show you how you can get this, do the same technique with just an ink pad. So we'll start with the paint. So I just have a piece of scratch paper here, and I'm just going to put a small line of paint, and that's probably more than enough. So Okay, so what you're going to need to do is take one of your plain, before we do this, actually I should have done that for you. You're going to take a plain white card panel and you're just going to run it through your embossing folder as normal. Okay, so we're going to run that through, and then you're going to end up with just a white embossed panel like so. Now one side is bumpy, and this is the typical side you would use, but for this technique we're going to flip it over. I'm going to put that bumpy side down, and we're going to take our, I'm going to slide this off. We're going to take our brayer and we're just going to pick up that paint. I'm going to pick it up and move it so that I get paint evenly distributed onto my brayer. That looks good. I'm going to pull over this, and remember the bumpy side's down, so this is mostly flat, and I'm just going to start off of the panel and then I'm just rolling it over. I'm not pressing. Just back and forth. So now it's going to catch on the edges, but you kind of get this distress look. If you want, you can pick up more paint. And then I'm going to do the other side. All right, and this will dry really quick, that paint, and that's a pretty background for a birthday card or wedding, whatever, just depending on the color you use. I am going to say that when I chose this embossing folder, I chose a 3D embossing folder. And a 3D embossing folder is different because it has more than one layer of raised area. So some of these balloons are raised more than some of the other balloons to make it look 3D. So some of the techniques I would have liked to have shown weren't so easily done, and you can tell that that's why some of these are picking up the paint, because they're closer to the paper than maybe these ones that are further back. But it still works. You get more of a distressed look, but that's the difference between a normal and a 3D. The normal is just going to have one level of raised area, and that's it. This one has a couple different layers. But we can still use these for those techniques. So I wanted to show you, I'm going to grab this is just me grabbing an extra, so you don't actually have this in your kit, but I'm going to grab an extra white embossed panel, and I'm going to show you that you can do this same technique with just an ink pad. So let's take this, let's just do this prom queen, then we'll stay with the pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use direct pad to paper technique, and I'm just going to start off and pull down. And so it's going to get into some of those other areas as well, but it's still a cool look. And the more ink you put down, the darker, more intense it'll get. So if you don't have a brayer, or you don't have the paint, you can try that. The other thing you could do is, if you have a brayer and you don't want to use paint, you can use the brayer on your ink pad. So this is just another for your stash to make a card with later. All right, for this next technique, you're going to need your craft piece of cardstock and your embossing folder again. You're gonna tuck that piece in there, and we're gonna run this through the embossing machine. All right, so I have my embossed piece of craft, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a dauber, finger dauber, and white pigment ink. And I'm just going to, with a light hand, go over the balloons. So we're just trying to pick up and give the balloon some color. You could use any color of ink that you want. I always think white on craft is a pretty look. So. And I'm barely putting any pressure, like I'm just holding it and moving it around. It may look like I'm pressing hard, but I am not. I'm trying not to get into those flat parts. And these are easy because they're circles. So then if I want to pick up the, well, what do you call them? The strings, I'm just going to find them and I'm lightly grazing over them. But it is bringing them forward by doing that. And it is nice, the white, I mean there's probably some, there is some getting on the flat spots, but it's really picking up where the strings are. So just a light hand. And then you get that nice soft look. So that is another way, is using pigment inks on colored cardstock. White on craft would probably be one of my favorites. There's that. All right, another technique is we're going to use, I'm not sure if I mentioned before, I had so many supplies sitting here, I guess I wasn't sure what I was using for what, but I have a sandpaper block here. And you have, it's a different color, but you have a piece of cardstock or paper with a white core in your kit. So you have this, it's like a navy on one side and a mint green on the other. But the core of the paper, I don't know if you can tell, is white. So once we emboss it, so we're going to take this piece of paper and we're going to run it through our embossing machine. Now, if you want the white or the dark to show, you need to put it, whatever color you want to show, you need to put it on top of the bumpy side. So there's more like a flat side and then a bumpy side. Like these are indented, like you can push in and it's flat. This one, everything is popped up. So if I want the blue showing, I'm going to put that up on the bumpy side and I'm going to run it through like so. If you want the mint to show, just flip it over. Okay. This technique that we're going to do would work on both sides, and I'll show you that. So if you don't get it right, you can still maybe use that color you wanted. I am going to show you a cool technique that someone in class showed us. So I'll share that with you. But go ahead and run this through your embossing machine or your die cutting machine. All right, so there's that. So I have the mint green showing on mine. And what you're going to do is just take this sanding block. Any sandpaper will do. Block is nice because it's flat. And I'm just going to pull it over, run it around. And because the paper has a white core, I'm sanding off that top layer of colored paper. And you'll be able to see that white come through. Okay, so it's messy, so you get a cool distress look. Now I'm going to show you on the other side, just so you can see that you can do it on both sides. So this time you're going to pull down, and it's going to like pick up the outline. So you just get a different effect. You don't get the strings, obviously. They almost look like they're glowing. It's kind of cool. Alright, so there's that. Now your paper, you can't do this on basil cardstock because it does not have the white core. So you would not get the same effect. You've got to have a white cord paper. And so I am going to show, so yesterday in class somebody had this dark blue side up where the balloons were different colors. And then what she did is took different colors of ink, because it's almost dark black. Where it's white, it takes on the color. Very cool. And so now I'll go in with some purple. Triple berry, I guess is what it's called. It's more of a pinky purple. And then I'll go in with some blue. that is a very cool effect. People will say, how did you get those different colors on there? So that's cool. You can find a dark colored paper like that, sand it off, and then put ink on it. So we will tuck these away. These are to be used for anything you want to use later. All right, we have one more technique to show you that is just for a card sample, but I like to show the techniques because then with your own craft supplies, the possibilities are endless. So what you're going to need for this one is a plain white card panel. You're going to need an ink color of your choice. I think I'm going to use the pink. And obviously your embossing folder. And then you need a background stamp. So for this one, I have used the Hero Arts, what is the name of this one? Rough Dot Bold Print. So you just need a large background stamp. Anything will do. I will say that words, anything with words wouldn't be a good choice because they end up where you can't read them. They're like backwards or mirrored, however that works. So I wouldn't suggest that, but any other pattern will do. So I'm going to put that onto a little stamp block. It's not a little, a big one. And we're not going to emboss this one first for this technique. So we're going to open up our embossing folder. And like I said before, we have like a flatter side that dips in, and we have this side that is bumpy. So we want the side that's flat. I'm going to put it in front of me. And I'm just going to lay it there. Now I have my large background stamp, and I'm going to ink it up. Alright, so I'm going to ink that up good. And what I'm going to do is stamp onto my embossing folder. I'm going to take the stamp, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to lay it down there. I don't want to move it a whole lot because it is plastic. It could be slippery and then it'll mess up my image. So I'm just going to let that sit for a minute, let that ink transfer onto the embossing folder. Okay, I'm going to lift it up, and now that pattern is on my embossing folder. Oops, I'm going to bring over die cut machine. And what I'm going to do is, you can lay it here, but I don't want it to move and I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to slide it down to where I know it's going to be on there like so. I hope you can see this. Maybe. So here's where it's stamped. Here's where it's not. I'm going to put my paper where it's not stamped and close it onto it like so. And now I'm going to run it through my machine. And it stamps the background. It's kind of like a letter press technique. It stamps it into the background, but it is not on the part that's raised. So that's pretty cool. It can look like confetti. And then I'm just going to put some water on my embossing folder and clean that ink off because we don't want that to transfer on anything else. All right, so now we're on to this technique that we're actually going to use in this Hooray It's Your Birthday card. And so this one's very similar to what we just did. So you're going to need a plain white panel. You are going to need an ink pad and a brayer. And your embossing folder. So let me get that out. So what we're going to do is that same flat side that we just stamped on, we're going to put ink on with the brayer. So I'm going to use blue, and I'm just going to ink up my brayer. All right, so I've got ink on there, and I'm going to carefully, because remember we have several layers here, and I'm just going to sprayer that ink onto that, and I'm going to go both ways so I get good coverage. And I can see it here. I don't know if you can, so you can see that I've got ink on there. So it might help if you want to see what your ink coverage looks like to put some white underneath so you can see if you're happy with that. All right, so I got the blue down. And I'm going to take that blue or that white panel and I'm going to put it on the other side like I did before. And then I'm going to close the blue onto it. And now I'm going to run this through my machine. So I'm going to lift that up, and there we have pressed that blue ink into the background. I think it's very pretty. You can tell the difference here. This is not using as much ink. This I really made sure I had good coverage. So it's up to you on what you like, and you can tell it's not going to be perfect. I don't have blue all the way. I mean, some of these that's just the way it's going to work, but it's still cool. Kind of looks like maybe clouds coming through the back of those balloons. So I'm going to clean off my embossing folder again, and then I am going to take this panel and I'm going to find my card panel that looks like this, has the red things in it, and I'm just going to open this up and tuck that in there. So when we're ready to make the cards, it'll be ready to go. All right. So we have two more things to do here, and this technique is very similar to what we did. So you're going to have this black one that's already embossed, or maybe you need to emboss the other. So you need an embossed black panel. And this time we're just going to use the luster wax, kind of in the same fashion that we did the white on the craft. I used my fingers and just went over the balloons. So I'm just going to put some on my finger and rub very lightly over the balloons. And depending on how much wax is on my finger is how dark it is. This wax would be beautiful on a snowflake. If you have a snowflake embossing folder, maybe emboss like a navy blue or a blue and then put the silver over it. Oh, so pretty. But I think this would be a great graduation card. I think we went with retirement, wedding. Even a big number birthday, maybe a 50 or a 60 or 70, whatever you got. Sometimes it's fun just to have cards in your stash so you're ready to use them when the time comes. And then I'm going to try to make my finger as flat as possible and just lightly get those balloon strings. And I'm going to get a little on the background, but I'm okay with that. Oh, there's a balloon I forgot there. I think it's pretty good. And so you can definitely tell that I wanted more intense colors, so I just go back in and add more, and you get that darker look. The key is to not have a big glob You want it to be smooth on your finger so you have control over it. If you do have a big glob, you can get real, like once it's on there, it's on there. You can get big dark spots or heavy pigmented spots if you don't want those. All right, so there is that. And so this panel, we're going to do that same thing. I'm going to find the card kit with the black and the sentiments in it. And I am just going to tuck that in there so it's ready to go. I'm going to turn it around so I don't get silver on anything that I don't want. So that'll be ready to go. All right, for our next technique, you're going to need to grab this card kit that has the 2 colors of blue cardstock. For the sake of this video, I am using blue and orange. Blue and orange, yellow and orange. You're going to have these 2. And so we need to emboss, and you're going to end up getting 2 cards out of this, which is kind of cool. Or you could, this particular technique. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can pick a spot. We're going to start with the yellow. And if I want them to match up, so I kind of want to keep them in the same spot in the embossing folder. So there's lots of ways to do that. You can, I'm going to grab some, here it is, some washi, or this is purple tape. So you could line it up like here. Where it actually starts the embossing folder, I could, because we're going to trim it down anyway, I could just line it up. This would be the easiest way. If you don't want it to move, just tape it down and run it through your machine. And then when this one's done, you're going to do the orange and put it in the exact same spot. And that's going to work for this technique. It's really going to be the, oh, this one's kind of shimmery. It's really going to be the best way. And that's the easiest way. The other way is to do them together. So you're just going to put them together anywhere you want and emboss both pieces at once in your machine. Now maybe the one behind won't emboss as well as this one. The cool thing is now you can line it back up on your embossing folder and put it back through and get it right where you want it, because it'll fit in there kind of like a puzzle. So it's entirely up to you. I'm going to go for this easy foolproof methods. I'm going to run it through twice anyway. I'm just going to do it this way. So I'm going to put it up there in the corner, and then I'm going to just tape it so it doesn't move, and I'm going to run it through my machine. So that one looks good. I've got the yellow. And then we're going to do the orange. I'm going to do this side. So I'm going to put it in there right where that one was, tape it into place, run it back through my die cut machine. So those, carefully pull, oh, I'm not liking that. Oh, well, we're going to cut that off anyway, that's fine. All right, so then you're going to end up with these 2 embossed pieces. And I'm going to put them one on top of the other, and I'm going to put them into my trimmer. And whatever angle, you want to go straight across, you could go straight across. You want to come across like I did in this card here. And you're just going to put it in a trimmer and trim. All right, so I've got my papers lined up together, and this time I think I'm going to go corner to corner just for something different. Line it up however you want to trim it. And you cut them both at once. And then what you can do is these two go together and those two go together. And now they line up about as close as you want them. So I'm just going to pick these two to work with, and these two I can make another card with. So what I'm going to do is flip them over, and I'm going to line up the balloons. That may mean that it looks like this, just in case I didn't have it right. So I just want to line up the pattern, and I'm going to tape it together. So now when I trim it down, I don't have to try to guess. Oh, this one you could just start trimming. So now I can just come in here, and I want this to be at, I'm going to trim 1/8 of an inch off of every side to give it a nice clean look, so that it is at 4 by 5 1/4. So now I end up with this piece, which is pretty cool. And you can just repeat that same process with these two. You could also cut out a circle. There's lots of things you can do with that. So we are now ready. I believe we did all of our techniques. So now we're ready to put our cards together. So I'm going to grab those 3. Let's see. We have the 3. Where's the other, the black one? So these are the 3 cards we're going to make, and you have the 3 card kits. So let's just start with this one. So let's open up the kit. And one of the first things we're going to need to do, I'm gonna grab some scratch paper, is we need to color the balloon. So really you have the freedom to go whatever color you want. This one I chose red, the strings are red, so I'm probably gonna stick with that. So I got my red ink and my blending brush, and so I'll start with these little, these are the bottoms of your balloons, the little ends, and that little circle part doesn't really need to be done, so I'm just gonna hold it. So those two are done. And then what I tried to do is make a spot that was a little bit lighter when I was inking. But you can ink the whole thing. It's entirely up to you. I inked the whole thing, but I left just trying to create dimension. Like so. And I'm going to do the same with the other. Alright, so that one looks more like a half moon. Let's come here. Alright. Good with that. So now we are going to put the balloons together. So I'm going to put these little things in front of me. Get some glue. And I'm going to put a dot on each circle, and then pick it up like so. So I'm going to put my little highlight in the same spot on both balloons, like so. And then I also, on this balloon, that's totally up to you, I used a white gel pen to add more highlights. I'm not sure that I have that pen right here at my desk, so I may skip that. Yeah, I probably left it with the class supplies. That's okay. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take this and cut it in half, the string, or twine. And I'm just going to use regular tape again. And I'm just going to tape that to the back. Both. And then I pop these up. So let's So those are ready to go, my balloons. And I only put foam on this side because they're going to overlap. That way it doesn't interfere. Okay, so those balloons are ready to go. And then I'm going to go find my sentiment. So in your other 2 card kits, the one with the black has your pre-stamped sentiments. So I'm going to grab those out. Just the sentiments. And these were designed that you could just go in and trim them out. So I'm going to go in and grab that happy birthday. And then you should have had a black piece of paper, and that was made so that you could see how that fits just perfect, except for the end. So I'm going to cut a little bit off of each end. Let's see if I got lucky. It looks good to me. All right. We'll save these for our other 2 cards. And then you have this piece that we made earlier with your embossing folder, and I'm going to cut 1/4 inch off of each side. So I'm going to move it to 4, and then I'm going to move it to 3 3/4. I didn't cut any off the top or bottom because I wanted white on both edges. And I'm going to glue that down. Alright, so there's that. I'm going to line up my balloons here. So let's take off the backing. Have one there. The other one there. And however you want these to go. Oh, I'm happy with that. And I'm just going to put a little glue down here. I hope I'm on camera. Probably not. Let's see. And I kind of want them to cross right there. And you can go in different spots, put a little glue and tap them down. It won't take much to keep it where you want it, or you can just let them run free. It's up to you. And then we're going to put that, I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. Let's put our sentiment onto the black. Alright, our sentiment's on there. It's a little long on that side. I'm just going to take my scissors and even that out. You could use your trimmer too. Alright, and so I'm going to pop that up and put that down here at the bottom. I might put this one, since my balloons are kind of going that way, I'm going to put this one off to the side just for something different. And then I'm going to trim off the edges. Alright, so that card is completed. Let's put together our next card. Let's do this black, which is this one, Happy Retirement. You should have the card base, should have the panel with the balloons, another plain black, and a strip here we'll use for the sentiment. So I'm going to trim this down. So what I'm going to do first is, because I don't remember the measurement, this is 3 7/8 wide, so I only want, I don't want a full 1/4 inch, I want like an 1/8. So I'm going to cut it at 3 3/4 this way. So 3 3/4. I'm going to go a little, yeah, just like so. Okay, and then this way I'm going to cut it at 5. So 3 3/4 by 5. And that should give us the perfect 16, yep, there we go, 16. So we got a nice thin border. So I'm going to glue this onto my black. All right, and then I'm going to pop this panel up. All right, I've got the backing removed, and I'm going to put this panel centered on the white card base. Like so. And now I'm going to grab a sentiment. So this time I think I'm going to do a great job, you did it, and I could use this as a graduation card. This is 7/8, so I need this to be 3/4 of an inch, like so. Now I did these banner ends, so I'll do this one first. I'm just going to cut up the center. And then from the corner to the center, corner to the center, and then I'll glue it so that I can trim those as well. All right. I'm just going to take my scissors and match up that. All right, and all we did is pull that off to the side. So I'm going to, you could pop it, this one's coming up here. I'm glued down all the way. You could pop it up if you didn't mind the double amount of foam. Goodness, I can spit it out. But I'm just going to hang it off. I'm going to come down in here. I want the white on the edge, so I'm going to have the white hang off the edge a little, so when I trim it, there's no black. And then I'll just take a pair of straight edge scissors and trim that. All right, that card is completed. All right, so one more card. So you should have, you're going to have some silver rhinestones, a vellum circle, and you should have something that looks like this, okay? I'm going to go ahead and stick with these blue since that's what the sample shows, so I'm going to match those up. Can't remember if I need to trim these down. Yes, I do. So I'm going to match them up like I did before. So I'm going to find where they match. Take that together and then put them in my trimmer and trim. I want it to get down to 4 by 5 1/4. So works. I'll just do 1/4 of an inch off each side. And then I am going to glue this down onto my card base, and I just glued it straight down. So I'm going to have a white border. That's very pretty. All right, so then what I did, and it can be up to you, we're doing this card here. If you want the happy birthday popped up, you're going to want to pop that up first onto your vellum circle. And so it is kind of tedious, but I think I'm going to do it. So get some, and that way we can hide the adhesive behind these little, behind the word. So I'm just going to lay that down so I can, let's see, center those on there. I'll do the happy first. A pair of tweezers to hold that. Happy. And the birthday. And So now I can flip that over and hide the glue back here. I'm just going to put a dot where each foam square was. Should be enough to hold it. And then I'm going to line it at center in the card. Something heavy over it to hold it in place. Alright, then we'll finish off with those little rhinestones. Grab my jewel picker. And we have 3 up here. 1, 2, 3. And then 3 down here. And now that card is complete. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this technique class on embossing folders. I hope you stirred some creative juices to get out your embossing folders and start playing with them a little more. If you are interested in a kit, you can find us at www.frommomentstomilstones.com, and this is a techniques class kit, the Spellbinders 3D embossing folder. Thanks so much for watching.